My mind, it was state of freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, I'm walking and talking with my mind, it was state of freedom. To walk with your mind on freedom. Talk, you gotta talk, you gotta talk with your mind on freedom. Talk. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind, it was state of freedom. Sing with us. I woke up this morning with my mind, it was state of freedom. Oh yeah, I woke up this morning with my mind, it was state of freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. singers. John Marshall, free at last. Kathleen Sarver, Melinda Alcácer. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening.
Good evening. What a moving performance by the choir. Another round of applause, please. That was the Lift Every Voice and Sing choir and the Peace is Possible choir. Thank you very much for starting this off tonight. Welcome to this important and timely program, Nonviolence in a Time of Civil Unrest. I'm Matt Poland, and I'm the CEO of Hartford Public Library, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you here to experience and participate in a conversation with one of the most impactful American figures of the last century and today, Dr. Bernard LaFayette. Yes. Dr. LaFayette's effect on the evolution of our nation cannot be overstated, and his words in a time of contemporary civil unrest in our country are as relevant now as ever before. We're honored he is with us today. Dr. LaFayette's lessons of nonviolence are championed by the hard work of the Connecticut Center for Nonviolence, an organization we are proud to call partner to present not only this keynote event, but a 10-week institute of peaceful reconciliation training and education for residents of Hartford and outside of Hartford. Students of the Institute are community leaders, ordinary citizens, nonprofit organizations, and teachers who meet here at the library each Saturday to immerse themselves in the nonviolent philosophies and strategies of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as passed along to Dr. LaFayette. And they use what they learn to make positive change in their own communities. The important work of this institute and the Connecticut Center for Nonviolence encourages Dr. King's teachings in action throughout our state. So it's my great pleasure to introduce the director of that center and my colleague, Victoria Christgau.
Good evening. It truly is an honor and a privilege to be here and to be here with our beloved teacher, Dr. Bernard LaFayette, and to see so many wonderful Hartford residents and friends from all over Rhode Island and New York and everywhere. Thank you for coming. I so want to applaud the Department of Families, Children, Youth and Recreation Division of Youth Services for awarding the Connecticut Center for Nonviolence, as well as the Hartford Public Library, the 2015 grant, which is called Under Challenging Hartford to Engage Civically and Keep Moving Together, the Check It grant. And it is because of that funding that we are able to do this. We certainly want to thank Jose Colon and Trish Toyella, who weren't able to be with us this evening, but they send their regards. Peace is possible. Nonviolence, at the heart of nonviolence, the very core of nonviolence is love. And when you see us gathering here from across these very many differences, coming to recognize this renowned leader, Dr. Bernard LaFayette, it's through this love, it's through this compassion that we can heal and change the world. Certainly we can do it one block. Don't you think in Hartford, just one block? And what happens when that turns to 2 blocks? And what happens when that turns to 3 and 4? So today, not only am I here with my colleagues and my beloved friends, I've adored working at the Hartford Public Library. Matt Poland has been gracious. His staff is amazing. The work they do here is profound. We need to support the Hartford Public Library as they are such an institution for all of us. Yes, give them an applause. Give them an applause. So many great people, so many wonderful services. So before I leave this podium, I want to ask all of you in the audience who've been certified and trained in Bernard LaFayette's Kingian Nonviolence Conflict Reconciliation, would certified trainers please stand? Wow, look at that. Okay, now, these are brilliant people, certified and trained. Now, I want to ask, stay standing. Now, I want to ask the Thinking, which is the Thinking Youth Nonviolence Leadership program which we run here on Mondays with Blue Hills Civic Association, with money from Connecticut General Assembly. Legislators made this possible. Thinking Youth, would you please stand and stay standing? Look at this. We've got our youth here. Where would we be without them? Wonderful. And now I want to ask the members of the new Martin Luther King Jr. Institute, Nonviolence Leadership Institute, who are now enrolled and who are coming here on Saturdays, would you please stand? All right. All right. Can we change? Yes, we can. Do we have hope? Yes, we do. Can we make a difference? Yes, we can. Peace is possible. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. I could speak certainly for the entire city of Hartford when I say that the concept of nonviolent reconciliation is of critical importance to all of our communities. But let me introduce someone who can really speak for the city of Hartford, our mayor, Pedro Segarra.
Thank you. Good evening. And it is indeed an honor to be here. A couple of minutes ago, I was outside. It was freezing. I was walking around a couple of blocks, and I almost turned into an icicle. And then I come into this room, and I see all these bright smiles and all these wonderful people and beautiful music. And it is indeed a pleasure to be here and welcome everyone to hear the words of Dr. Bernard Lafayette. And on behalf of the city administration, I welcome him. I'm honored that he is here with us to share his words of inspiration and also to acknowledge the fact that he has been a very important figure in the civil rights movement and a proponent of nonviolent strategies for social change. I firmly believe that the world which humanity seeks to conquer is best conquered by by the good use of the words, through conversation and through love, and not through the sword. And I honor people such as Dr. Lafayette, who have for so long, spanned their entire lives, dedicated and even risked their life for the betterment of our country, for the betterment of our humanity. While he and others have made significant inroads towards attaining equality, we must remember that the struggle for justice and for equality is ongoing. That's what tonight's discussion is about, to explore ways of moving forward towards that goal. So I'm honored to be here today. I want to welcome him on behalf of all the residents of Hartford and the region to the Hartford Public Library, a place like no other. And I also want now to call our Council President, Sean Wooden, to provide an introduction. Thank you, good night, and enjoy the conference.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Hartford City Council, and I know we have some members, I see Councilman Anderson here, I'd like to also extend my welcome. And Dr. Lafayette, as some of you know, he's not a newcomer. This is not his first visit to our city, and so I say welcome back. I had the occasion last year to spend some time with him, and that was wonderful. As a student of the civil rights movement personally, and as someone who cares deeply about social justice, about economic justice in our society, I am always awed to be in the presence of those in our society who have devoted their lives to this cause, their lives. A lot of people come in and out of various struggles, and I kind of have that feeling when Congressman John Lewis was in my backyard and he was speaking to people and talking, and I remember looking at him thinking, wow, there are not many people that devote their entire lives, and there may be different settings, to this struggle. And this evening, we are honored and blessed to have such a person with us. And so I'm going to read some of his bio. It won't be everything because that would take too long, but I want to give everyone a sense of Dr. Lafayette. He is a longtime civil rights activist and organizer who was a leader in the 1960s civil rights movement. He played a leading role in the early organizing in Selma, Alabama, the voting rights campaign. He was a member of the Nashville student movement and worked closely throughout the 1960s movement with groups such as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, also known as SNCC, the Southern Christian Leadership Council, and the American Friends Service Committee. In connection with his work for the SCLC, Dr. LaFayette also served as the national coordinator of the Poor People's Campaign, a campaign initiated by Dr. King in the SCLC in 1968 that demanded economic and human rights for poor Americans of diverse backgrounds. Dr. LaFayette has dedicated his life's work to advocating the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and continues his work as an activist and educator. He was a senior fellow at the University of Rhode Island, where he helped to found the Center of Nonviolent and Peace Studies. The center promotes nonviolence education using the curriculum based on principles and methods of Martin Luther King Jr. He's a distinguished scholar in residence at the Candler School of Theology at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And so tonight, it brings me great pleasure to introduce a giant in our history and someone still working today. And I would add, my fraternity brother, a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, like Dr. King, Dr. Bernard Lafayette.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Wooden, for that very inspiring introduction. When I hear about all of those things that I've done, I wonder, who is that person? I'm just delighted to be here. I can't tell you how much it means to me to be in your presence. And so many of our friends and colleagues over the years, and some of those who've come from Rhode Island even, to be with us. And my only regret is that I'm only going to be here for a few days. I would like to stay here until, the golf season comes. But I'm afraid I am called to go to so many other places. The mayor and others from the library, administration, I am just pleased and delighted to be your guest. I cannot say enough about Victoria Christgau and the work that she's been doing here in the state of Connecticut. I know that Connecticut will never be the same as a result of the work that she's doing here and all of the other trainers who dedicated their lives to work with young people and to work with all the ages. And all of you who are working even now to become certified trainers, you are going to be called not only to work in Connecticut, but I want you to polish your foreign languages, because the world is going to call on you. And the reason I know is because they told me. When I was in Berlin last year, I discovered some things about Martin Luther King that I did not know, even though I knew him and studied Martin Luther King for many years. In Berlin, there's a museum, and Martin Luther King's picture and his speeches are all over this museum. Gorbachev, he is saying with his own words that it was Martin Luther King who inspired him to move in the direction of tearing down the Berlin Wall. I never would have believed it. And when I was in Berlin, I met a man who said that he had armed himself with some others, and he was in East Berlin, and he was planning to make the ultimate sacrifice and just go and say that he rebelled and he helped to kill some of those in East Germany. But in 1964, Martin Luther King went to Berlin, and he spoke on both sides of the wall. He was just there a day and a half. And his passport was taken away from him at Checkpoint Charlie, and they denied him the opportunity to go over in East Berlin, where a large number of people had gathered to hear him speak. How do you think he got through the checkpoint? They said, well, we're sorry, Dr. King. We can't let you come through without some kind of passport or identification, even though we know who you are. It's required that you have something with your name on it that so we can use to get you through. Guess what he used? His American Express card. True story. They said, that'll do. Yes. And he spoke. And this man was telling me, the one that had gathered his buddies together to go and kill some people, he said because of the speech he heard, and he was in East Berlin, Martin Luther King, he said he couldn't do it anymore. And that reminded me of another interesting incident I experienced in Colombia, Latin America. Not Colombia, Colombia. We went to visit some of the gang members in the barrios where we were conducting our nonviolence training. And when we were up there, one of the gang leaders got so ecstatic. And for the first time, he confessed to his other gang leaders why he made excuses when they suggested that they would go out and kill some people. Because like some people say, well, let's go and visit some, barbecue place or some other kind of restaurant. These gang members would say, well, let's go ahead and kill somebody. That's how they killed 500 a month in the mountains, in the barrios. It was a casual thing. But he started making excuses about going with them. So after we arrived, he felt comfortable telling them the reason he couldn't kill anymore because he saw the film Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi's film made it impossible for him to kill anymore. And that's what he said to us. He was one of those who came to Rhode Island to get the nonviolence training, because we brought some people in from different places in Latin America, in Colombia especially. And when we told the executives and some of the other nonprofit leaders of different organizations that we were going to go to the U.S. for training, they had left out the gang members when they selected them. So I told them, I said, we have to get some of the gang leaders. They say, gang? I said, yes, we have to get the gang members. He had not been selected, but they got together and they decided that he had to go. So one of the members who was selected came to us and said, listen, let him go. I'll stay. Even though they had never gone to the United States before, and this was such a special thing. He said, no, let him go. I'll stay. I said, no, because I'm in charge. I decide. Both of you are going. And the reason you're going is because you've already passed the first exam, and that is to give it up for others. Yes. So they both were able to come. Now, there was one fellow who could not come, one gang member. And the reason he couldn't come to the U.S. When the rest of them came is because he was one of the gang leaders who had been shot 9 times, and he still had bullets in him. He was still walking around. He couldn't go through the, because he would ring all over the place. Okay? Couldn't go through the security. Those gang leaders became some of the best trainers we ever had. So what I'm saying is that don't be surprised that some of the people who experience more violence many times can become your best nonviolent trainers because they know violence so well. And what they come to realize, and when they look at the history and they look at the things they have done and things that others have done, they come to the conclusion that violence is not as powerful as nonviolence. No. Nonviolence has a standing of its own. And when people learn to really appreciate the nonviolence, they find that they can do things that they had never dreamed they could do. Once they're exposed to it, they learn the power of nonviolence. Then they understand Martin Luther King, they understand Mahatma Gandhi, they understand Thoreau. They understand many other outstanding leaders from different faiths who have embraced nonviolence. So when we look at the success that we have been able to create, there's no question. Oh, by the way, since I mentioned Colombia, there was a prison, one of the most notorious prisons in all of Latin America. It's called Bella Vista. Bella Vista, when we arrived in Colombia, they were killing 6 people a day in this prison. Yes, it's outside of Medellin. They invited us in. And when the inmates invite you to come to the prison, it's a good idea to go. So we went. And we met the fellow who was in charge of all the inmates, 7,000 inmates. They had a talking table that represented all of the different gang leaders in this prison. And they stood up when he came in the room. He was well respected. You know why? He was Escobar's man. Yeah, Escobar had a reputation out of this world. You're looking at somebody who saw Escobar's prison when he decided that he would go to jail since he was charged and arrested. He said, only on one condition, I have to build my own prison. Yes, he did. Some of you know about that. He built it. His own prison. I saw his prison there in Colombia. Well, this man represented Escobar. And he said, we want some nonviolence training in this prison. Because he was walking down the hallway in the prison and talking to one of his friends, and somebody came up behind him and shot his friend in the back of the head and spilled blood all over him. He was looking for another way, because the retaliation back and forth is the thing that created the high number of homicides. The ambulance would go up in the mountains in the Andes and just stay there all day long until the ambulance was filled with dead bodies. No sense in going back and forth. There was no rush. They were already dead. That's the situation. Google it, check it out. Once we got the nonviolence program installed in Bella Vista, no more killings. The problems we deal with today among our young people and in our so-called ghetto communities and the killing and everything, the problem is complicated. The solution is simple. People have to learn and be taught. Just like you like to eat. You need to know how to cook if you like to eat certain things. Yes. And that's one of the things that we did with young people when we had the Godfathers program in Nashville. We taught these young boys, okay? And the boys that we selected were boys who had parents in jail. They didn't have the benefit of having their parents with them every day or going to school to check on them and that kind of thing. So we formed a Godfathers Club. 25 men, 100 boys. We'd meet with them once a week, and we teach them how to cook, and we teach them how to make sure their homework was done, and we became the Godfathers. Yes. Every child needs a mother and a father. 5 out of every 7 children who have parents in jail will go to jail. We can turn this place around. And the way you turn it around is that we have these children being born every day. That's who they are. They were born like everybody else. But the question is, what experiences are they going to have in life? We had to turn and reverse the jail trail. Now, we are too intelligent. And we got too many universities here in Connecticut, all right? Too many smart people, doctors, lawyers, and everything. We don't have to accept these problems. There are enough of us who have knowledge and commitment and dedication. All we have to do is design a structure and a strategy for saving our young folk. Life is not that long anyway. Yeah. In fact, I am so excited about the kind of things that are going on here with Victoria Criscal. I'm staying on my medication because I want to see it happen. I know it can be done. Yeah. In fact, I got a tip for you. Did you know that they got young people preparing to go to Mars? Yeah, that's right. They are ready to go and inhabit Mars. We got to make sure they don't carry any guns. Yeah. Okay? And I also want to live longer now. And I didn't think I was going to live this long in the movement. There was no reasonable, at all for me to think about the fact that I was going to live as long as I did. Or I have lived. Because they came after us as leaders and organizers. But see, the power of nonviolence is not an insurance policy. No, there is no guarantee. When we went on the freedom rides, we wrote out our wills of where we wanted our things to go. We were in the seminary like John Lewis and blah, blah, we were ministers. So we had suits and that kind of thing, many more than the average young person our age. And we said who the suits would go to, who the shoes, couldn't go to everybody because, everybody don't wear the same size shoes. But we got shoes and that kind of thing. Then we got books. Who were going to get our books? We wrote out our wills and left the will there in case if we didn't get back. When we went on the freedom rides, we knew the possibilities. Because in Addison, Alabama, they set the bus on fire and held the door. They were going to burn them alive. Yes, you know about burning folks alive because you see television. Yeah. Cruel. Okay? People. No respect for humanity. No one could take our lives. How could somebody take your life when you've already given it? We gave our lives. So when they came to take our life, we told them, you're too late. We've already given it. And the most effective way to practice nonviolence is when you come to that point in your life that you're willing to sacrifice your life for a worthwhile cause. Martin Luther King says, only, and I paraphrase him, that when you've overcome the fear of death, that's the moment that you live the fullness of life. Death cannot stop you. Yes. I'll tell you this story about my own experience, and we'll close. In Selma, Alabama, when I decided that I was going to take up the mantle, I went and I volunteered with SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and it was James Foreman who was the executive director. We had recruited him as our executive director because he was older and more experienced. In fact, he was a college professor at Roosevelt University in Chicago. But he was very committed to what we were doing. He agreed to come and be our executive director. And we were ready to volunteer and give our time, like the Peace Corps and like Vista Volunteers. That made up the staff of SNCC. And we decided we were going to go on. Okay. And so as we went to take our places on the staff, he said there are no more directorships because Bob Moses had been assigned to Mississippi, Charles Sherrod had been assigned to Southwest Georgia, Bill Hanson had been assigned to Arkansas. There were no other places. So I told James Foreman that he had promised me if I went and raised some money and come back to get Dion Diamond out of jail in Louisiana, where he was arrested doing voter registration of black folks. In Louisiana, you know about Louisiana? You know what they charged him with for trying to get black folks registered to vote? Conspiracy to overthrow the state of Louisiana. One-man conspiracy. Yeah, I'm French, so I can talk about the French, right? Yeah, okay. So we raised the money, went to Detroit, Chicago, took care of that. Came back, no assignment. I said, well, wait a minute, Foreman, you told me that if I go and help raise some money, you're going to give me an assignment. He said, well, there's no other places. He said, now, if you want to be an assistant director, you can go down there with Bob Moses or go down with... I said, if I want to be an assistant, I'm 22 years old. I got to direct something at 22, you know. If I want to be an assistant director, I go get married. Two SNCC teams had already gone down to Selma, Alabama, because there was an X through Selma, an X on the map on the wall. X. Crossed it out. Two teams went down independently, came back with the same report. Nothing can happen in Selma, Alabama, because white folks are too mean and black folks are too scared. Yeah, scaredness is a scar, by the way. Yeah. He said, but if you want to go take a look at it, you know. I said, no, I want to take a look at it. I'll take it. Now, the first thing I had to do is not run down to Selma, Alabama. I had to find out what was it in Selma, Alabama that was so different from like Mississippi. That's where we were scared, Mississippi, okay? And I just gotten off the Freedom Ride, so, you know, we knew about that, parchment and all that kind of stuff. So I said that the first thing I have to do is find a place where I can do some research. So I had to research the library where I was going to do the research. And what was I going to research? I was going to research why in Selma, Alabama, white folks were so mean. They're meaner than Mississippi and meaner than Georgia. Then I got to find out why black folks were so scared. So I had to research the library. And what I did as a result, I found a library in Alabama that had the publication, monthly publication, of the White Citizens Council. Because I had to read about mean white folk. So you could understand them, you know? So that's what I did. I did the research there, and I found out the White Citizens Council met at the downtown bank boardroom once a month. I was an avid reader of the White Citizens Council and the Ku Klux Klan. I can tell you some things that you would never even dream of. For example, the first Ku Klux Klan group, they weren't after black folk. They were after white men. Did you know that? I know you didn't. Yeah, they formed a group that went after white men who wouldn't take care of their children. Because if the white father didn't take care of the children, who do you think had to take care of the children? The other white men in the community. It was after Reconstruction when they decided to go after black folks. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. That's what happened. All right, I can tell you more, but the time is out. We'll talk later on sidebar. I went into Selma, Alabama, and I can tell you some things that the movie did not cover in terms of how the culture, the economics. There were 8 families in Selma, Alabama that controlled everything. You married into that family, you never had to worry about a job. Poor white folk, yeah, they treated them, okay, pretty much like they did black folks, all right? And that's the thing that people have got to come to grips with. When you look at poverty and you look at all of the kind of economic oppression that people get, while they're looking at black folk, they need to look in the mirror and see who's suffering as well. Yes, black folks are suffering, no question about that, because they're identifiable. But the attention is drawn towards the black folk, and people are not looking at themselves and the kind of deprivation that they're also experiencing. So what we have to do in the movement is get some mirrors. That's the next project we need to do, is buy up a lot of mirrors so people can see themselves, and they'll do it. Closing. This movement was so effective that almost every year Martin Luther King was packing up another success, okay? The leader. No, he didn't create these movements. No, Martin Luther King came and gave support and leadership to these movements. Yes, and that's the thing to realize. Martin Luther King picked and he chose. They were calling him everywhere, every day. He couldn't respond, so he had a formula and a criteria for selecting where he would go. And I know what that formula is. And I know how he made the selections. Okay? Yeah. I was with him April 4th, 1968, that morning. Fateful morning. I was going to go to Washington, D.C. to open up the campaign office, and we had a conversation where we were finishing the press statement that morning, and Martin Luther King said something to me that I never will forget that changed my whole life and my whole direction. He said, now, Bernard, the next thing we're going to do is to institutionalize and internationalize nonviolence. Comma. We'll talk about it later. 5 hours later, as my plane landed there at National Airport in Washington, D.C., that's when I found out that Martin Luther King had been killed. Why was he killed? Well, if he lived long enough, he was going to die anyway, like all of us. I'm sorry to have to report this to you, but we're not going to live forever. Okay? We're going to be here today, and sometime tomorrow, we don't know which tomorrow, we'll be gone. Just like we read the obituaries in the newspaper, we will get our own obituary. It's coming. You're going to get in the newspaper. Yes. So why did they kill Martin Luther King? They shot and killed him because he was the only person in the world who could call for an international boycott. Yes, because the world respected him everywhere he go. Okay? They tried to kill the movement. It was not Martin Luther King. They didn't have anything personal against him. He was a nice fella. You know, good company. He used to tell jokes. You know, he was cool. He shot pool, you know. He's a regular guy. A lot of fun. So why did they kill him? Well, the truth of the matter is they were not after killing him. They were trying to kill the nonviolent movement because of how effective it was in getting people all over the world. The thing that freed South Africa was the, what? Olympics. Yeah. They told the South African, you know, people that they couldn't come to the Olympics. He gathered the whole world around that whole issue. Okay? Yeah. Martin Luther King had that ability. They did put a hit on him, but they missed. It was a hit. It was planned, but they missed. I know they missed because Martin Luther King's birthday is celebrated in more countries around the world than anybody you ever imagined except JC himself. They missed. Now, they did put a hit on him, but it was a hit and a miss. Martin Luther King was a man of his word, and I'm going now. He told me at the Lorraine Hotel in room 306, my room was 206 downstairs, and that morning before April 4th, 1968, he said, now you go ahead and have the press conference and open up the campaign office for the Poor People's Campaign, because I was a national coordinator. And he said, I'll meet you, you know, in Washington, D.C. later on. And they killed him. But doggone it, he was a man of his word. Because when was that? A few years ago, I looked up on the mall, and there was Martin Luther King in a 30-foot stature. He kept his word. It was a hit, but it was a miss. When I look at what's happening in Connecticut right now, like I'm talking right now, and they got workshops training folks all over in these universities, all over Connecticut, it was a miss. Okay? Hit, but a miss. Thank you for the miss. Thank you.
A hit and a miss. Thank you, Dr. Bernard Lafayette. And now we have the good opportunity to actually address some questions. So why don't you think about what would you like to ask this fine gentleman? We want to encourage you to really think of a question more so than a statement. The platform here is an opportunity to hear from this master. And there's so much to his life that he didn't tell you. He was jailed 27 times. In Selma, he was near beaten to death. They wanted to kill him the night they killed Medgar Evers, June 12, 1963. And Bernard Lafayette remained alive. Then they tried to get him another time. He remained alive. This man is fearless. He will do anything. He walked into Jim Clark's office in Selma. He said, "You got to know me. You got to know me." So here's what I want to ask you to do. If you have a question, upstairs we have a microphone, down here we have a microphone. So what you will do is you can form a line here and come to this mic and ask a question, and we're going to go from down here to up there, okay? And I will help you. Obviously, we want to give Dr. Lafayette opportunity to answer more than, you know, a couple questions. So think about that. Please come forward. Oh, great. Right over here. Great, right over here. Step right up.
I know that you mentioned that there were some things that were not depicted in the movie of Selma and that happened. Can you maybe describe a few things that we may have missed?
First of all, I appreciate the movie because it gives an opportunity for a lot of discussion. And it's very timely, and it's also dramatic and that sort of thing. So I'm very much supportive of the movie. And I know in an hour and a half, you can't cover everything. One of the things that it didn't cover, and I want to share this with you. When I went to Selma, Alabama, I could not find a church that would allow us to have a mass meeting. Everybody was concerned that, you know, the church would get bombed, whatever. But you notice there was no church bombed in Selma. They bombed the churches in Montgomery, Alabama. They bombed churches in Birmingham, Alabama. Okay? No churches got bombed in Selma. You know why? Because they all had mortgages on them. And see, Selma, you didn't see any robes with people with Klan robes and stuff. Did you notice that? You saw them in Montgomery. You saw them in Birmingham. I saw them in Montgomery on the Freedom Rides. You know, the Klan walking around in the bus station and that kind of stuff, throwing cold water on us and stepping on our feet because we were going to sleep. And I surprised one of the Klan members because they threw some cold water on me. See, we were staying all night in the bus station trying to get a bus to take us, you know, further on the Freedom Rides. And the bus drivers wouldn't drive. You know why? Because and these were Teamsters now, okay? Because they would burn the bus. You saw them do that in Anniston. No bus driver gonna be driving a bus and, you know, somebody try to throw a bomb in it, okay? Klan members, they threw the water on me. And I turned around and said, thank you, because I wanted to stay awake so I could watch them. And I messed around and nodded, okay, went to sleep. Selma, Alabama is controlled by the White Citizen Council, not the Ku Klux Klan. They didn't have to use that. They killed 3 white folks, only 1 black. Okay? Yeah. This was in Selma, Alabama, because they had such tight control that if you went to the mass meeting, you know what they would do? They wouldn't go after you. They would go and find your mother-in-law and fire her from her job. How many more mass meetings you gonna go to? Okay? You get your mother-in-law fired, you better get out of town. It was implosion rather than explosion. Okay? So my point is there were a lot of interesting things. I couldn't get a mass meeting because they wouldn't. You know how I got the first mass meeting? Mr. Boynton, who was head of the Dallas County Voters League, and Selma's in Dallas County, and he was head of the Dallas County Voters League, but he'd been in the nursing home, and he was, very sick. I used to stay with him at night sometimes, and I could feel this strange thing happening, a transference of his spirit, his feeling, his commitment, when I would sit there on the side of his bed at night, okay? Just to watch him, give Mrs. Boynton some relief. Anybody passed by the door, he gave wide awake. Are you registered to vote? And he was dying. So the first mass meeting we had was a memorial service for Mr. Boynton and voter registration. People were confused about whether they should go or not, well, because that's what he was about, voter registration, so that was a voter registration rally. Yeah. And I don't have time to tell you this right now, but it's in my book. You're looking at somebody who organized against himself. That's how I got the mass meetings going. A group of black ministers had organized, and they were trying to say that LaFayette is not the leader of the of Selma, Alabama. And we're preachers, we're the leaders. So I got somebody to organize against me in order to unify them. Okay, I haven't done it before since, but, you know, I was desperate, you know what I mean? So I called them while they were all meeting on me. I dialed the number and said, listen, I need to have a place for a mass meeting next week. Could we meet at your church? I didn't even know who the minister was. He just answered the phone. And see, he was one of the moderates. And they've been up there talking about they're the leaders, right? He said, well, yeah, you can meet at my church Thursday, and you can meet at Reverend so-and-so's church next Thursday. And I got me, 4 months of mass meetings with one call, and I've been working 3 months with no success. And these are the kind of things I like to teach people, you know, how to organize against yourself in order to get some unity. Okay? Well, that's just one example.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, up on top now we have somebody asking a question.
Thank you for being here. This is a question I'm sure you answer all the time, but just for us here in Hartford, could you clarify the value of nonviolence in the face of violence? Because a lot of times people tune out when they hear nonviolence. They think we're talking about nonviolence in the face of nonviolence, right? And I know I've been down south. I've spoken to a lot of veterans of the Civil Rights Movement, and they've given me examples of nonviolence in action. So I'm asking you, for the people here in Hartford, could you just take a moment to give us an example or clarify nonviolence and the nonviolent approach going in the face of violence, being creative in the face of violence, and being effective? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I should say, I really appreciate that question. The next thing, you're looking at somebody who used to be a gang leader, not just a gang member. I was the leader of the Parish Street Gang in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, okay, when I was 11 years old. And we used to fight Girard Avenue Gang, which was a big gang. So we used strategies, okay, to defeat the gang. We were little fellows in size, individual size, and also in numbers. But we used all kind of strategies. And one of the things that we learned later on in the movement, that you can learn a lot from military strategy, okay? That one of the things you got to be able to do is to sustain your action. You can't take no pock shot and then take off, okay? No. One of the things you have to be able to do is to read and understand and study your opponents. I can tell you more about white folks than most white folks can tell you. Okay? And I also can tell you about scared Negroes. Scared Negroes will get you killed. No. So my point is, the research is very important, okay? So it's not just being nonviolent, it's understanding the total strategy. Oh, but the Freedom Rides, oh, you know when we got arrested in Jackson, Mississippi? The destination for the Freedom Rides was New Orleans. Why did we end up, we never got there? Because they arrested us in Jackson, Mississippi, and we stayed there and went on to Parchment. I went to 5 different jails in Mississippi, okay? Why did we do that? 39 days appeal period. If you didn't get out of jail after 39 days, you didn't make bail or make bond or whatever, you would have to serve your entire sentence. So that's why we stayed in the max, 39 days, and we got out. What were we doing in jail? Filling the jails. We made a beachhead. You know what a beachhead is? Yeah, military, you know what a beachhead is, don't you? That's what we were doing. Because we had to sustain the action. Had we gone all the way to New Orleans, because see, we could have gotten out on bail after we got arrested in, in Jackson, Mississippi. Get out on bail and get on the next bus and go on to the next. No. We wanted to sustain the movement. Movement would have been over had we done that. So what we had to do is figure out a way that we could attract a larger number of people. So by staying in jail 39 days, that got the folks up north, a lot of them from Connecticut, by the way, okay? time to make up to get off from work and to take where you're going to take your summer vacation. Yeah, the good thing was in the summer. Did you know we ain't had no movements in the wintertime? That was strategic. Yeah. A clear example of nonviolence. The night that Medgar Evers was killed, he was a field secretary for the state of Mississippi, NAACP. They shot and killed him June 12th, 1963. The FBI told me they were scheduled to kill 3 of us the same night. They attacked me that night also. I didn't know Medgar was killed until the next day because they took me to the hospital to patch up my wounds. This huge guy came and he beat me up. And he hit me in the middle of the street. Okay, there are more details, but you know, you can read the book. And the 3rd time he knocked me down, I got back up and looked at him. And I was a little skinny fellow, as you can see from some of the things. Well, you know why I was skinny? Because I used to be involved in the sit-ins. Did you realize we didn't eat lunch? We were sitting in, but we didn't get served. But I made up for mine. I don't know about the rest of them. He beat me down to the ground. And when I got up the 3rd time, I was looking at him, and he had a gun. And that's what he was going to do. He was going to shoot me. So I hollered for my neighbor, Red, somebody needs to see this homicide. There should be a witness when you're going to get killed, you know, if possible. So I called Red, and he came across the banister upstairs with his rifle. He was a Vietnam vet, you know, and he started getting a beam on this guy. Okay, now he didn't shoot. Some of the literature tell you that he shot, warning shot. No, I was there. The folks who wrote it, they weren't there. He did not shoot, okay? He was trying to get a beam on him, and he might have shot him, you know, because, you know, people come out of the military, they shoot people, you know what I mean? And so I realized he's going to shoot this white man, and I stood in front of him and the guy who had the gun behind me. I said, don't shoot, Red, don't shoot. Nonviolence is morally right, but it's also practical. And he shot that white man, we all would have been. But I was trying to save the white man's life, the one who had the gun. Okay? So, but it's hard, man, to shoot somebody who's trying to save your life. Do you understand what I'm saying? Uh-huh. I made it difficult. Now, he might have shot me, I don't know, but it would have been difficult to shoot somebody who's shielding you from somebody who has a beam on you. Okay? Yeah. That's what saved my life when I was willing to give my life, not to a friend, okay, but an assailant. Now, that's the extreme. There's a lot of stuff in between, and that's what you get when you go through the training. Okay? Yes?
Could we ask you to take that mic and you can go sit over there and use that mic because we're having some mic things. And would you mind sitting or would you prefer to stand?
I prefer to stand.
Okay, would you mind using that microphone? They're going to help you.
So we do have another question.
Thank you. Okay, very good.
I'm going to come back down to Rachel. This gentleman has been waiting. Sir.
Okay, brother.
The question I have is, I've noticed that 50 years later, when black people get upset in America, we march and protest and boycott, sing "We Shall Overcome." And I feel like 50 years from now, when black people get upset, we'll march and sing "We Shall Overcome" and boycott and sit in. And I'm wondering, are the actions of 50 or so years ago the template for what black people should do forever when we feel there has been some type of injustice going on? So is it that we'll boycott and protest and march and sing "We Shall Overcome" and sit in forever? Is that the template for us, or should we be thinking about different approaches to solve problems in different eras in a different time.
Y'all deep up here, ain't you? Nobody ever asked me that question? Nobody ever asked me that question. You're the first one. I really am. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Okay? Yeah. We had expected that certain things would have changed by now. And what we are observing is that the signs have been removed, but not the system. There's a difference between having some segregated signs and the system still in place. Now, we made some mistakes in the movement. And when you are old enough and wise enough to admit your mistakes, that's when you can learn. That's what we learn from mistakes. That's where the learning takes place. You know, like the fellow who invented the light bulb, how many times he tried and failed, okay? But don't make the same mistake over and over again. That's the point. One of the mistakes we made was not to set up a citizenship education school in every county once we got the protection for the right to vote. See, we already had the right to vote. So what we were protesting about was the protection. Those folks beat you in the street and run you out to the courthouse and bomb you, this, that, and the other, because you were trying to register to vote. You ain't getting registered yet now. Not voting, just trying to get registered to vote. And you had to go through all that. So we should have had these classes set up so that people come in, just like you have driver's education, you know, for young people. We need voter education. Teach them how to be citizens and to participate. That's one thing. As an individual, you are a citizen. And then you have to work on building your community. Because the people who you elect are folks who represent you. And you know what they represent? How to spend your tax money. Every vote has to do with money. Who's going to get it and who's not going to get it. But I tell you what, hey, April 15th, you better be here, okay? Children pay taxes on things that they buy, but they can't vote, okay? So we have to do that, all right? But we need to teach them to participate. So what I'm saying is, yes, marching and we shall overcome, no. We have to take what we can learn from the movement of the past and the successes that were made, and I can tell you it's better off. Some people say, ain't nothing changed. I tell you what, some things did change. I can go down the list, things changed, okay? And electing, you know, Barack Obama is just one example, but that's not the end of segregation or oppression, okay? Now see, the segregation, the whole point of it was to keep black and white folks from talking to each other. That's why they separated them. So they wouldn't talk, because they'd start talking, they'd find out they had a lot of things in common. Okay, and one thing they have in common is they're not getting represented. That's one of the things, all right? Like the March on Washington, all those white folks showed up at the March on Washington, and even on the Freedom Rides. Change cannot happen unless you're able to win the sympathy, if not the active support of the majority. Why do you think they're trying to keep Hispanics out of here? Huh? They don't want to represent no Hispanics. All right? Yeah. So my point is, what we've got to do is put it into our educational system, help people build community, help people understand that if it happens to one directly, it happens to all of us indirectly. And, yeah, redistribution of the wealth and resources. Okay? Yeah. We need to have health care systems. We need to have housing. How are we talking about being And they're calling those other places third world countries. We're about to be a third world country. When you think about all the people who are in jail and all the folks who are out there on the streets begging and don't have anything, no, we have to stand up. Now, my last point is this. When we do protest and we march and saying we shall overcome and that kind of business, we better have a specific change that we want. And we better be able to tell them, okay, what that change is. Now, there was segregation in the South, but we couldn't work on all the problems at once. So we worked on transportation, okay? Now, here's the thing that most people hadn't even thought about, okay? We had already desegregated the bus station in Nashville because we did that when we had our sit-ins downtown. So the bus station was integrated before the Freedom Ride starts. So you know what was happening? Folks would ride a segregated bus from Washington, D.C. to go to an integrated bus station in Nashville. Then they would go and use the restrooms and sit down and eat all the food, and then get back on a segregated bus, because you're still in the South, and ride all the way to Montgomery to another segregated bus station. But guess what? You could ride an integrated bus in Montgomery, local bus, to the segregated bus station. Does that make a lot of sense? See, you hadn't thought about that. Tell the truth. You ain't thought about that. But you knew that, though. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Look for cracks in the system. That's my point. That's why I have to do the research. Look for cracks in the system. And when you see a crack in the system, one of the ways you tear down a wall, okay, don't go brick by brick. You're going to die before you get all them bricks moved. Understand what I'm talking about? Find a hole and get you a crowbar. So while you're marching and demonstrating and singing, we shall overcome, have a specific change that you want. And that's what I don't want to happen to the people in Ferguson, in that movement. When I say Ferguson, I mean the nationwide movement, and even folks in China. Do you know they connected with student groups in China? The folks out of Ferguson? Yeah. They got, I was on a conference call with them, and somebody called from China and Japan. Hey, this is global, man. We are global citizens. You may have been born in a particular state, but you are a citizen of the world. This is your world. And that's why I told you, get your passport, because once you get your nonviolence training, they are calling for us in France right now. Did you know that? And in Berlin. Guess where I'm going next month? Brazil. Because you got all those black folks in Brazil, and they're still being treated like second-class citizens too. Okay? So, no, be very specific in terms of your strategy and be on target in terms of the change you want. Any place you find disparities economically, I can show you that you have a low percentage of your citizens voting. Folks who elected, they represent the folks who elected them. So if you ain't part of the election, then you're not part of the decisions. But we'll talk some more.
Thank you, Dr. LaFayette. We have a question up here on the second floor.
My question kind of refers back to education. I'm a teacher, and of course we have anti-bullying initiatives at school, but I'm wondering, with the future generations, how do we go beyond be nice to one another to helping these students think about nonviolence as a way of life and teaching them not only to not fight back, but to be proactive in their nonviolence, standing against injustice?
You're talking about children. The reason I'm smiling is because I'm looking at one of my trainers out here who's a school teacher and phenomenal in terms of what children can do. But that's it's Robin there, okay, Wildman. And we had some fun with children and that kind of thing. You know what happened? I'll give you the short answer because I want to get a couple more questions in. We trained the students in nonviolence, and they came up with their own creative way of dealing with fights. Somebody jump on somebody, bullying them around. You know what they would do? They came with this by themselves. Form a circle around the folks who are in the conflict and start singing the national anthem. It's hard. That's not impossible, but it's hard to get up enough strength to beat up your fellow citizens when they sing in the national anthem. Do you see my point? They will come up. Music was the blood of the movement. It ran through our veins. And when you hear the sound of music, okay, the song that you're singing can bring us together. How else do you explain folks going across the bridge there in Selma, Alabama, being beaten and their teeth knocked out, eyes? I can't even tell you how many people were injured. And walking around even later with eyes knocked out, teeth, okay? Broken this and broken that. You see what I'm talking about? But guess what? Even though they were broken, they healed stronger in the broken places. Young people are very creative. Give them the basic foundation of nonviolence and turn them loose. And you'll see something that you've never seen before. And that's my hope, okay? And they could do it.
Thank you, Dr. LaFayette. Is there anyone down here? Kathleen? Oh, I'm sorry. Kathleen.
Hello, Kathleen. I was listening to a talk you gave at TEDx Emory about, you mentioned something about facing your opponents at all time and doing so without revolutionary methods. Do you think of this new movement with the training that we're doing now? Do you think that can turn into a revolution? And do you think if it turns into a revolution, is a revolution considered to be destructive? Is a question I have.
I think that it has the potential to bring into a revolution, which means what are we talking about? We're talking about getting people to look at others as human beings, okay? And when you look at other people as human beings, it's very difficult for you not to see yourself. And that's why I was saying earlier, we got to get some mirrors so people can look at themselves. And some folks say, well, I don't see color. Well, you must be blind if you don't see color. But what you've got to see is that color is beautiful. Okay? That's why back in the city we said, black is beautiful. You know why we were saying that? We weren't talking to white folks. We were talking to black folks who didn't think they were beautiful because of their color or their hair and all that. Okay? Yeah. Uh-huh. And if black is so ugly, why did they make so much money off them tanning machines? So, my point is that, yes, it is possible, okay? And what we have to do is understand that we are a global community. That's why Martin Luther King said his goal was to fight for the beloved community. That community was global. Don't restrict our identity. We are global. In fact, you know what, black folks, when I was growing up, they used to call us colored people. Okay? Then we got to be Negroes. Negro is Spanish word for black, right? Some folks didn't even know that. Negro. I came up through all those names. Then we can call ourselves African Americans. You know why? Because we identify with a global community. We weren't just American colored folk. All right? Yeah, our roots took us all the way back to Africa. That's that third generation syndrome I talk about. It's on the news. Okay? where we have to recognize and appreciate our roots, okay? The original people, where do you think they came from? Well, you get your history lesson. You'll find out. Well, that means that all those Africans in. I know that kind of scares some people, but hey, you know, yeah, if that's where the original people came from, yeah, okay. So my point is, we have to realize that we are a global community, and we have to teach that and help people to understand that, okay?
Thank you.
So I think we have one last question on the second floor here.
Okay.
Dr. LaFayette, I want to ask you about what is the role of nonviolence, and you've referred to the global community, but clearly the war on terror is something that everyone in this room thinks about, contributes to with their taxes, even contributes to the hatred of people of different races, different religious backgrounds. I mean, it's something that is just, the last decade is just pretty much overrun our lives, where all of us are being, you know, surveilled by the government these days just for using our cell phones. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we talk about terrorism, okay? The important thing is to understand why people harbor those kind of feelings towards other people. It has all to do with perception, how they perceive other people. If people feel that they have been exploited, people have been disrespected, they feel that the people who they love have been persecuted, then they feel that they have to have revenge. In fact, they talk about it. What you gonna do? Well, we got to have revenge. We got to show them an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's equal justice. They're talking about knocking folks' eyes out and knocking their teeth out. That's equal justice. Guess what the policy was before equal justice? The policy was, if somebody knocked your eye out, you were justified in knocking their head off, okay? And then killing the entire tribe, and then kill all of the animals, and the sheeps and the sheepdogs. That's what they call, okay, justice, because you can't replace your eye. You get your eye knocked out, hey, they can't give you no other eye. Look at, no, that's it. You lost that eye. They can put your false eye in there, but you can't see anything, okay? Now, you get you some teeth now, you know. They did improve that. But the point is, it was Hammurabi that came up with that idea of one eye for one eye and one tooth for one tooth. He was like a lawgiver, like Moses. That's equal justice. Don't knock all the folks' eyes out. Only one eye. If you knock one person out. Now the problem with that was that if somebody knocks your eye out and you knock one of their eyes out and then they knock your other eye out, how are you going to see how to knock their eye out? Okay? So that's so-called equal justice. No, that's why nonviolence replaces that. It stops the eyes and teeth from getting knocked out. Okay? That's what you're working towards. And the reason people knock folks' eyes out is because they don't perceive them as equal human beings. So it's not equal parts of your body, it's equality with your neighbor, okay, whether it's abroad or not. And what we've got to do is find a way to talk. And when talking doesn't work, keep talking. Violence is the language of the inarticulate. We are too smart. I'll give you this one example. Remember your Wounded Knee? Y'all remember Wounded Knee? Over there in South Dakota? okay, in the Black Hills or whatever over there. I was in school up there at that small college in Cambridge, and I was looking at TV, and they had this thing on by Wounded Knee, and Russell Means had made a statement, and he said, stand up and bury my heart in Wounded Knee, because they had made an announcement, that's the U.S. government, they were coming in there and rout them out, because Russell Means had gone in and taken over the reservation from the chief. So the Interior Department is responsible for protecting the reservations, you know that? Yeah, all those nations, Native Americans, yeah. So what happened is that since he went in and took over the reservation, our government had mounted up. They had tanks. And they told Russell Means, you got to 6 o'clock tomorrow to get out of there, otherwise we come in and we're going to rout you out. So here I was sitting up here at Ivy League School and going to wait till tomorrow, the next day, and see the cowboys and Indians again, have a shootout and everything. And see, the thing about it is those Native Americans didn't have any bow and arrows and spears. They had guns. Some of them didn't go to Vietnam. They had foxholes. They'd already shot a federal marshal in the back. Okay? They were ready to die. That would have been a great tragedy for our whole country, go in there and shoot up all the Indians. Should he have taken over the reservation? That's debatable. Okay. Maybe not, maybe so. The archaeologists were digging in their graveyards of their foreparents, taking stuff out off their bodies. Now, that might not be acceptable to you, you know what I mean, for somebody to do that. And the government allowed it. So what happened is that I hopped on the plane, and I called my friend Bill Moyer. I said, look, man, meet me in, Dakota. I didn't know. This is a situation where, in nonviolence, you act your way into thinking rather than thinking your way into acting. In this case, you know where you have to be, even if you don't know what you're going to do when you get there. But you know where you got to be. You got to be there on the ground if you're going to do something about that situation. So I thought about it on the way there. Got there, long story short. It so happened that when I went to the checkpoint, U.S. checkpoint, there was a fellow named Bob Lamb who was a Justice Department official, and I knew him in the Poor People's Campaign. And so what happened is he knew I wasn't going to bring any guns, so he allowed me to go through the checkpoint. They said he's all right because he believes in nonviolence, and maybe he can help solve this thing. We won't have to go in and shoot up the Indians. You know what I mean? So I got to the checkpoint with the Indians, okay, and guess who was there? Russell Means. And he saw me from the Poor People's Campaign. He knew I'd come to help, not to harm. So we got to talking, and I said, now, what are your demands? I mean, what are you? No, we decided not to talk. The talking and negotiations had broken down. Our government wouldn't talk. They said, hey, we're not negotiating anymore. We done told them to get out of there. That's the only thing we got to say. And we get them to 6 o'clock tomorrow. So I got there about 5 o'clock the day before. And I said, no, okay, I'm not going to ask you to negotiate. I know y'all decided not to talk. And I respect that, you know. So I got my pen out and my tablet. And I said, I'm not asking you to negotiate now, but if you were going to negotiate, what would be the issue? Not that you're going to negotiate, but if you were. He said, well, this, that. I said, no, give me one at a time. Okay? Watch this strategy, okay? One at a time. I'll be right back. I went back through the checkpoint, and I said, no, I'm not asking you to negotiate, but this is what they said if they were going to negotiate, you know? So what's your response to this? So our government gave the response, and the person in charge of Wounded Knee from the government side was a young white woman with long blonde hair who was smoking a cigar. I didn't know it was a woman because, you know, her hair was all up, you know, and she took off the cap. You know what I'm talking about? She was from California. And she got the call when she was on the beach out there. And she was FBI, and she was in charge of all of the wounded. Wounded Knee code word was south wind. Okay? One at a time. All night long, I went back and forth. Okay? I didn't sleep that night, because there wasn't no time to sleep. By 12 o'clock the next day, our government brought in a new spokesman, and the situation was solved. Okay? I'm usually very modest about these things, but I'm telling you so you understand. Talking. When you talk and you don't get anywhere, keep talking. And then if you finally, can't get anything done, keep talking. If you can't talk, let the paper talk. But keep communication going. Okay? The Vietnam War would have been over 5 times earlier, but they broke off negotiation 5 times. Lost over 40-some thousand folk because negotiators broke off negotiations. Nonviolence means that you do not break off negotiation. Talk. That's the language, okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lafayette. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, those of you that are studying with us will have the opportunity to work with Dr. Lafayette over the next 2 days. Doc, if you were going to sing a song right now and they got all these people that could sing with you, what song would you sing? Seriously, we could sing any of your songs. What do you think, choir? Can we sing any song?
We have a song.
All right, let's do it.
That we sing when you don't know what to sing.
Okay, choir, come up and stand around this man. Percussionists, please help us. Let's see what he wants.
Yeah, when the movement,
we're going to do what he wants.
You have to always be prepared, even when you're not prepared. Okay, so I can't think of any song to sing. But I know the song that we sing when we can't think of a song to sing.
Okay, well, we're here to do that with you.
Ooh, this quiet. Oh, that's why y'all dress like that.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Why you didn't tell me? I could have had my black suit on and all that.
We'll sing with you, Doc.
Okay.
We want to wind up with the song.
All right. Wind up with the song. Okay. Now, I got a country song I sang, but I'm not going to sing that tonight. You heard it, Hillbilly? Yeah, I got my song to sing too.
You can
okay.
sing any of the songs from the movement.
Okay, all right, I sing this. When you don't know what to sing, this is the song. I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. And what the Spirit says do, I'm gonna do, oh Lord, I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. We're gonna sing. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. And when the Spirit says sing, I'm gonna sing, oh Lord, I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm gonna clap. I'm gonna clap when the Spirit says clap. I'm gonna clap when the Spirit says clap. And when the Spirit says clap, I'm gonna clap, oh Lord. I'm gonna clap when the Spirit says I'm gonna march. Gonna march when the Spirit says march. I'm gonna march when the Spirit says march. And when the Spirit says march, I'm gonna march, oh Lord. I'm gonna march when the Spirit says I'm gonna shout. I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout. I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout. And when the Spirit says shout, I'm gonna shout, oh Lord. I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout. I'm gonna moan when the Spirit says moan. I'm gonna moan when the Spirit says moan. And when the Spirit says moan, I'm gonna moan, oh Lord. I'm gonna moan when the Spirit says moan. I'm gonna stop. Stop when the Spirit says stop. I'm gonna stop when the Spirit says stop. And when the Spirit says stop, I'm gonna stop, oh Lord, I'm gonna stop when the Spirit says stop.
Thank you, Dr. Bernard Lafayette. Thank you, Hartford Public Library. Thank you, everybody, Connecticut Center for Nonviolence. We will see you tomorrow. Peace.